And we are back to talk about Mandalorian seasons 4 and 5, essentially the mid-season review. Preston, you watched it, and I have to ask you the first thing. A couple days ago on your live stream, I asked you if there was a scene in episode 4 that once you watch it, you're going to be like, oh, come on, really? Now do you know what scene I'm talking about? That's so ridiculous. A part of their their religion.
There's a lot of ridiculousness, but because it's just like it's so much at once that I don't know what you're talking about. But
I'm talking about specifically that they have to go, like once they're camping and they're all going to eat, they all have to go in separate directions a fair bit of ways to fucking take off their helmet to actually eat, and how ridiculous that is.
I mean, that is pretty ridiculous.
That is the most ridiculous fucking thing in the entire episode. Episode 4.
It's just very impractical. But I mean, why not just shove the food under your helmet?
Yeah,
I mean, granted, or maybe the helmets have seals. The thing is, I lived in the Middle East for 4 years, and so I've seen like women in niqab, like the face covering. Like I've seen them at restaurants, and they just take the food and put it under, and that's it. Like you can take your hand and put it up and under it. It's a little annoying, but like they manage, it's so I just assumed they were doing that with their helmets. But I did notice that when Bo-Katan took off her helmet, it made a sound. So maybe like all of their helmets are like sealed like that, and they can't just shove their hand under.
Their helmets would have to be sealed like that because like first off, the helmet itself is so impractical if you think about it, because there's like a glass type of like the visor, so they're breathing and it's causing condensation and all that, and like it has to be like some kind of high-tech helmet with that like helps with that, because like in the middle of a fight
takes away the
like it has to be.
Yeah, you're right that like it would all be fogged up. I mean, it doesn't look like they have much visibility to start. Do you think like inside it's actually like a Tony Stark screen?
Yes,
and they can actually have like they have full vision versus like that slit.
There's a guy who it's a YouTuber. It's not the guy that we're thinking of, like the big YouTuber that always talks about like the medieval stuff. There's another YouTuber who's much smaller who was talking about this in regards to Mandalorian, and he said the eye slit thing, it is not a problem at all for like vision, like in fight, it's not a problem at all. Yes, episode 4. Possibly one of the most boring Mando episodes I've ever seen. I did not care about anything that happened.
I do agree. I just the whole time I was just like, I just felt like we were wasting time. Like we had a flashback to Grogu that told me nothing. Like, yeah, like I didn't need an explanation of him escaping the Jedi Temple. Like, I get it. We've seen other escapes from the Jedi Temple. Like we were shown that during Obi-Wan. Like I didn't need an explanation. I wasn't like, well, how did he get away? Like who fucking cares? Like we know he got away, and he saw a bunch of like some bad stuff. In fact, his escape made it downplayed the trauma. Like before it was like, oh, he saw a lot of trauma, and then it was abstract and I was imagining very horrible things. But now that I saw what he saw, I'm like, eh. Like, I mean, obviously it should be actually traumatic, but it just didn't seem that traumatic. Like my imagination of the trauma was worse than what was put on screen. Like it was a waste of time. We didn't need to see that. That backstory added nothing. And then the rest of the episode was they were climbing rocks for, oh my God, for so long. And it was just, oh gosh. And I just kept thinking, like, why'd you guys take off your capes? Like, should you really be rock climbing with capes on? I don't know. It was just, it seemed a bit silly. I don't know. I mean, the whole point of the episode was what? So Bo-Katan could endear herself to Big Gun, and then so later Big Gun could make that speech about how they need to, or that both, I guess both Mando and Bo-Katan had to endear themselves to Big Gun so that Big Gun could speak on their behalf to like rescue the Carl Weathers planet.
That's essentially it. And by the way, you know who Big Gun actually is, right? The guy under that suit, supposedly.
Who?
Jon Favreau. That's Jon Favreau's character.
Himself? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's he.
By the way,
the only reason we know this, just so you know, the only reason we know this is because there was a toy that was released where we see him unmasked, and it's just literally Jon Favreau's face. So yes, it's Jon Favreau.
That's fun. Now, by the way, like every time we go back to their cult, they've fucking spawned more. They've like multiple. Like, are they reproducing asexually? Like every time we go back, there's twice as many. Like just this is exponential increase in the number of people in their cult. Like it started out there was like 4 dudes, and now there's like hundreds. And I still know.
I would say there's like at least like 30 to 45 of them.
Yeah, one of them looked exactly like Boba Fett, and I was like, "Is that Boba Fett?" Like he looks exact. You know, I'm talking about, right? Because I'm sure you thought the same thing. Where you're like, "Is that Boba Fett back there?" Because he's got the exact same armor as Boba Fett. I'm just saying. Like
Well, to your point about Grogu, the only thing I'm actually curious about is how Grogu ends up where we find him in episode 1 of season 1 of Mando, because for some reason he's in this location that all these bounty hunters are trying to assault, and like I'm wondering why is he there specifically? How does he get from Coruscant to there? And I guess the episode did give us Kelleran Beck, Jedi Master Beck, who is the actor is the Jar Jar Binks guy, which great. Okay. He didn't need any redemption, the actor. It wasn't his fault. It was he's just doing a job. I don't understand people who rip on the actors and actresses. They're just doing a job. Who the fuck cares? Who the fuck? If anything, if there's one actor anybody should really be going after, it's The Rock. Did you hear what Dwayne The Rock Johnson did with like Shazam and his own movie?
Yeah. Well, that's different. That's going outside of acting and doing like weird producer shifting the direction of movies and going behind the scenes. Like I've heard about all of his shenanigans, and it's like that's different. That's him not being an actor. That's him being something else. That's him being a superstar, and affecting change. And like sometimes those things do work. I mean, like Tom Cruise was all about I'm going to do these stunts and they're going to be practical, and that really did help the Mission Impossible movies, or Ryan Reynolds was like, look, I have the star power to take some random little franchise like Deadpool and like turn it into something big. And he was right, so I'm not saying that like going beyond being an actor can't work out. It can, but The Rock was trying to do something with Black Adam, and sorry, it's Black Adam. No one cares. Like,
but no, episode 4 for me was just a total like waste of time. I think a lot of people agree with that. It's of course you were right. It's setting up Bo-Katan and Din Djarin's position in the cult
and
further.
I'm puzzled by the religion. Like every episode, I just get more and more puzzled about like what the hell they believe. And what really frustrated me about, and I'm blending the episodes because I watched them back to back, but like Bo-Katan all of a sudden is like enamored by the religion, and is like, is it okay if I wear like the Brontosaurus head as well, or whatever that. The mythosaur, right? And it's like, okay, what exactly about their religion like has made you fall in love with it? Like,
well, the thing you need to understand about her character is that she's she's not really much of a leader. She's more of a joiner. That's how we meet her character in the Clone Wars animated series from a couple decades ago, from a decade ago.
Yeah.
She was in another cult, kinda, and now, you know, when the cult's leadership shifts, she betrays it, goes away, and now we see her here as we find her in season 2. And
I'm just
another
saying,
cult.
if you're gonna Kevin Costner dances with wolves kind of have like situation, which is like what this is, right? You've got like this woman from a different world, lives with these people, learns their ways, discovers that their ways have their own beauty, and wishes to become part of them, right? It's Dances with Wolves.
I don't think you could say it's Dances with Wolves, because was Kevin Costner's character like Dances with Wolves? I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen bits and pieces, but it's about a white guy blending in with Native Americans, right?
Yeah.
So she's familiar with their customs. Like, she is a Native American. So
I know. I'm just talking about like I'm not specific. Like, no, it doesn't have to do with buffalo and all of that. No, like, it's not taking place during the, like, step back. It's about like one person like discovering another culture, becoming enamored with it, like being brought in by that culture, discovering its beauty, and then being converted by it, right? Like, that's the story in a general sense. But at no point have we seen what makes Mando's culture beautiful. Like, what is alluring about it? Now, and if you say like, well, you know, the greatest thing is that protecting foundlings is like the thing. Like, I mean, you could have spent more time on the orphans and the orphan backstory and who these foundlings were and how the Mandalorians found them and how they're really helping kids, you know? Right. But even that situation, it wasn't even that. It was Big Guns rescuing his own son. And you're like, oh, really? A father wanting to protect his own son. That sounds like every fucking culture ever since the beginning of time. Like, and the ones that didn't have that belief died off because they didn't care about their kids. Like, every culture cares about their kids. That's the whole fucking thing. like, so they're presenting me nothing. They're presenting me no reason to like the fucking Mando people.
I don't want to say...
Except for the fact that they're Mando's people.
Right, but I don't want to say that she's enamored with that cult just yet. It still feels to me like she's just kind of using them, but we'll see. We'll see if maybe she's just going along with it. I hope she's just going along with it, because, once again, she does have a history of joining fucked up cults. So... I
mean, I admit, like, her just going along with it and realizing that these people are people that she can manipulate and use would be a much more interesting story. I do not think that is the story is going that way. I have a much more interesting story for you when we get to it. You're gonna love this theory. Okay, I'm just saying that, like, Carmine, you've presented a story that is much more interesting than what's going to happen.
I got one even better for you. I got one even better for you. Okay, so
all right.
So episode 5, let me do the synopsis here. Gorian Shard invades Nevarro in retaliations for Van expulsions, and Greef Karga contacts Carson Teva, the older man who is the X-Wing pilot, for help. Suspecting that the attack is a prelude to the rise of a new empire, Teva informs one of his superiors. But when Colonel Tuttle shows indifference, he tracks down the Mandalorian covert and asks Din Djarin for help. Djarin convinces the covert to come to Karga's aid, despite their prior confrontations with him, and Bo-Katan assumes command of the attack force. As the Mandalorians overcome the pirates, Vane flees, and Shard is killed. The Mandalorians are welcomed back by Karga and the people, and the covert moves to the town. The Armorer meets with Bo-Katan, acknowledging the Mythosaurus' reappearance, even though last episode she didn't, adds an omen that Bo-Katan is the one that can reunite all the Mandalorians, and bids her to remove her helmet to symbolize this new position. On the way back to Adelphi, Teva encounters the wreckage of Moff Gideon's prison transport, which has gone missing during transit. He also finds a fragment of Beskar alloy, implying that the Mandalorians have broken Gideon out. So a couple things with that. I'm surprised they didn't use the destroyed prison transport to kill off Cara Dune's character. Because they so easily could have done that, since she was the one that kind of...
Oh, yeah,
she was a part of
absolutely,
capturing him.
yeah.
So the other thing is that, I don't know if you know this, but...
They're trying to take the high road by just like...
ignoring her.
Not
Acknowledging it.
by ignoring her. Yeah, they don't want to seem all bitter and everything. Plus like maybe one day she'll stop being a weirdo, and maybe they can bring her back or something. Maybe she'll see the light.
By the way, this is completely random. Did you know they kind of did that to the actress from Good Times? You ever see Good Times?
Yeah.
With the guy who goes Dynamite. The actress
JJ Walker, yeah.
Right. The actress who played the mom, she didn't like the direction the show was going. So when she like didn't want to do it, they did her character so dirty because they had to explain the absence of the mom and just say she ran off with the man who owns the complex, leaving the kids to fend for themselves. They did her character so dirty. At one point she comes back just because she wanted to redeem the character. I don't know if you know that. So we have seen instances
I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that eventually the parents disappear and the series is just about the three children. Like,
yeah,
I knew
but
that.
eventually she comes back.
Yes, I know that she was upset. Well, she was upset because Good Times... This is a little tangent, but like Good Times begins as a family sitcom that really focuses on the trauma and hardship that Black Americans have in poverty. And eventually, like, they're like, well, everybody's just tuning in to see JJ Walker and his antics. And so the show was slowly transitioning to just JJ Walker's antics. And she was like, she felt she didn't like both of those things. She wanted the moral message and she wanted to be the star. She wanted both of those things. And everything was shifting to JJ, who was the star of the show.
The same thing happened on Family Matters. Like the mom on Family Matters had the same complaint about Steve Urkel, it being the Steve Urkel show, and less about like the family struggles and all that. It
was completely true. It was completely true. I mean, she had a point. She definitely had a point that like it stopped really becoming the powerful social commentary art, and then it just became like JJ Walker,
I just wanted to point that out. But just so you know, in Star Wars Rebels, we find out, which takes place a couple years before A New Hope, we find out that there are Mandalorians who worked with the Empire. Some chose to break away, some chose to be nomads, some decided to just bite the bullet and work with the Empire. And one of the characters, Sabine, from your Sabine Better Than Ezra joke, she overpowers one of the Imperial Mandalorians and, has the Darksaber and whatnot, and then goes away, whatever. This could be one of those Mandalorians. Those could be one of those, like, evil...
that's my assumption at the end, is that we're dealing with different Mandalorian factions. Now, are they just going to bring in... is Sabine Better Than Ezra... Was she the woman who was hanging out with Bo-Katan in season 2?
No, she has not made a live-action appearance yet. You'll know her when you see her, because her armor will be decked out in, like, graffiti and stuff. She's very artistic.
Okay. So, it might be her, or it might just be Bo-Katan's, like, friend from the previous season who disappeared or whatever.
It's possible, yeah. Oh, by the way, real quick, here's the theory. This is a theory someone proposed in my server, and I thought it was fucking amazing. Wouldn't it be great if Moff Gideon was actually hiding in plain sight the entire time? Wouldn't it be fucking awesome if Moff Gideon was actually one of the Mandalorians in the cult, but you wouldn't know it was him because they all keep their fucking helmets on all the time? Wouldn't that be great? That would be the greatest twist.
That would be pretty funny. I don't know how he'd pull it off, but that would be pretty funny.
They don't ever take off their helmets, so how do you know?
Well, they can go by his voice.
Oh, stop it. In Star Wars, he could easily have a voice modulator.
Voice modulator. No, it's true.
I love that fucking theory. It's so great.
I mean, it's like Saw, He's like there the whole time.
I love it. I fucking love it. This episode was a lot better than the previous ones.
It was better. It was better, but still, like, by the way, it turns out, you know how the last time we were talking about this, how I made the joke about how he kills all the dudes in the street, and then the same aliens are on the ships, like the same combination. So I was like, did each one have a brother? And then now it turns out they were all triplets. They were all triplets. He kills them in the street, then he kills them again on the ships, and then he kills them again third time. That, man, the pirate and like hiring like a squad of like 5 or 6 triplets is amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think of the pirate's design? I mean, it was very like it kind of felt like Pirates of the Caribbean, really.
I love the swamp monster design. It's new, it's unique. He clearly looks like a villain.
Like he had a wheel to drive his ship. Mm-hmm. Did you see that?
The ship was actually the coolest fucking part, and I really wanted them to save it and like commandeer it and use it for like future adventures because it's so fucking cool looking. So cool.
Yeah, and they killed he had a little, his first mate was like one of the pig boys from Bespin.
Yes, I remember the pig boys.
Yeah.
We gotta find a name for all these fucking aliens. I'm sure there's an actual canonical name.
I'm sure everybody knows them, you know. But it's like
they're all like Fungus Face, Swamp Man guy, and Pig Boy.
Don't you think Kim? So the guy from Kim's Convenience, the X-wing pilot, how's he jumping around the galaxy so fast?
Light speed. That's the only explanation I have for it. Light speed.
But they're talking about like a planet. He's like, what planet are they on? And it's and they like establishing that Carl Weathers is on some planet in the Outer Rim that they've never heard of, and yet everybody's out to they're able to get out there real quick.
I'm pretty sure I could tell you about a couple of states, a couple of like small towns in Nebraska that you've never heard of, but I'm pretty sure you could get there fairly quickly if you had a private jet.
Well, no, but they said Outer Rim, so like you're going out, you know, like he's all the way at Coruscant, and we're talking about an Outer Rim planet. I'm just saying, people are like, oh my gosh, we're under attack from pirates. What should I do? I know, like okay, let's pull it. Let's do something real simple. Like let's say you live in you're in Newark. You're back in Newark, right? Okay. And you call me in Baltimore, you know, and then I drive to Washington D.C. and I talk to the bureaucracy, and I'm like, you know, my friend, his house is getting broken into in Newark. And then they're like, can't do anything about it, you know, bureaucracy. And I'm like, okay. So then I drive up to Philadelphia, where, you know, I know some Mandalorians, and I'm like, yo, Mandalorians, my friend's in Newark, and his house is getting broken into. And they're like, okay, let's go. And they go up to help you. Those cities are really close together, and still, like, that entire process of me going from Baltimore to DC back up to Philadelphia, them getting it would take like, you know, it would take some time. Like I'm just, it seems like no time passed. Like how long was Carl Weathers getting assaulted by those pirates?
Well, it's established that the pirates not only attacked the town and Carl Weathers and his people flee, but they also like occupy it. They wanted to use it as a base, and they wanted to take like all its treasure and whatnot. So they weren't just going to attack and run and you know, kill people. They were just going to attack, kill people, and just stay a little bit. So yeah, that's what Carl Weathers wanted help with, to drive them off. So that could take a couple of days, and they'd be just fine, I guess. I
don't know. It's just the timing seemed a little bit weird.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
It's fine. It's fine.
I will say, though, I disagree with IGN's rating on the episode. They gave it a 6. I wouldn't go that low. But they made a very good point in the tagline of their article. The New Republic has won the war, but they're losing the peace. which, yeah, I can see that. But at the same time, even in the original canon, the Thrawn trilogy focuses a lot. The old Thrawn trilogy focuses a lot on all these resources, specifically ships that the New Republic needs. Even though they won the war like 5 years ago at this point from Return of the Jedi, they're still struggling to keep up with an entire galaxy, and like it shows here. You know, they have to prioritize member planets first, and Navarro chose not to be a member planet. So, you know.
No, it's totally reasonable. Totally reasonable explanation. Big coincidence that it's like she happens to be in the cube outside of the office he's going into. What are the chances of that? I mean, granted it's the Star Wars universe, but it's like, whoa, what are the chances of all of the offices and all of the bureaucracies that you're gonna she's gonna be in the cube outside of the office that you want to walk into. That we are talking about a galaxy with, I imagine thousands, tens of thousands of habitable worlds, with trillions and trillions of individuals, and the same characters are just running into each other like in different. But that is Star Wars, though. That is Star Wars.
It's a real shame that we're more than halfway through the series. We only have 3 episodes left, and only now are we getting into the meat and potatoes of season 3. Because most of season 3 really is about Bo-Katan. It's about Moff Gideon coming back. It's not really about Din Djarin. His shit is over with. The only thing that's interesting about him now, other than Baby Yoda, is the fact that he has a Darksaber. That's about it. He has no other like major thing about him that makes him like super that, and he also has the whole Beskar alloy armor. But other than that, like, it's really Bo-Katan's show now. But we've already gone through like so many episodes where I felt like nothing really happened.
He's got connections. He's got friendships. Like if it weren't for Mando's friendships that he made in previous seasons, like none of this would have been able to happen.
True, that's a good point. But other than that, though, like, it's really Bo-Katan's show. But it took until the 5th episode for everything to really get underway. A lot of these episodes you could have just spliced together. Episodes 1 and 2, that could have been one giant, like, premiere. 3, okay, like, the middle part of 3 was really just a whatever for a character that may be very important going forward. Maybe. Like Elia Kane, the woman, maybe. Yeah. Episode 4 was a fucking nothing burger. And like this is... I wonder if the reason everything is so slow and kind of whatever is because of COVID. Because if you remember, Season 2 actually ended December of 2020. COVID didn't really start to take off until like December of 2019. January 2020. So it stands to reason that Mando Season 2 was recorded before COVID took off. So that's why we had all the stuff happening.
Yeah, I mean, even COVID in America was like March of 2020. Like we were definitely hearing about it from before then, but it was like the takeoff was around then. Do you think, man? I know I'm like a broken record on this, but man, the Mando religion makes no sense. I'm just talking about like Bo-Katan taking off her helmet at the end. Like we've already established that their little sect is ridiculous, and the reason that they're like a dying nothing sect is that they're a bunch of extremists who won't take off their helmet. And then all of a sudden, they get a plot of land and they're like, I guess we can send Bo-Katan off without her helmet on to like unite our people. It's like, well, wait, well, hold on. Like, I thought the only thing you fucking cared about was not taking off your goddamn helmet. And now you're talking about uniting your people? If you wanted to unite your people, take off your fucking helmet and go talk to everybody. Like, the problem was you not taking off your helmet. Not the fact that they didn't have some land. This is a universe with like thousands of habitable planets. There's plenty of fucking land. They were living on land. They were living on the fucking land. I don't understand why that planet Like, why Carl Weathers' planet, which looks just as desolate as the planet they were on with the.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's because the planet they were living on originally had a lot of dinosaurs and it was just overall dangerous. And it seems like Carl Weathers' planet Navarro isn't as dangerous. And yeah, so I guess it's easier to settle there than it would be on the previous planet.
Because they don't have, like, dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially like the Mandalorian's like main problems in life seem to be dinosaurs. And like, I don't know why they're hiding either. I know that they're like, oh, a part of their religion, they got to keep hiding. And you're like, well, why? Because now you're not hiding. Like Navarro, you're way out in the open now. Everyone knows you're going to be there. You were like living in basements before, and now you're not living in a basement. What changed?
I don't know. I would like to ask Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni about this.
And it's like, well, maybe they feel safer now, but it's like, no, the entire episode was about how Carl Weathers can't defend shit all, and they had to fucking like pull him out, and they're going to be defending themselves. He's essentially like, they're going to police the planet or defend the planet. So they would be defending any planet. So like, why all of a sudden are they out of the basement and taking off their helmets?
I think
you see, like this is
I know what you're saying. Like
it's fucking religion, man. It's fucking religion. Like you've already established that the religion has no content other than the fucking helmet law, and then all of a sudden and the fact that it's super secret and extremist and they have to live in shadows, and now they don't.
Yeah, in the last episode, the armorer was like, yeah, the mythosaur, I'm sure you saw it, whatever. And now all of a sudden she believes Bo-Katan saw it, and that it's a sign, and that Bo-Katan must do all these things. But, transition from that...
Now I've decided, if only, or that, if only I could go to, the middle of the Maghreb, in North Africa, where you've got, AQIM and other terrorist organizations, and I go to these people and I'm like, guys, I saw a dinosaur, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I've seen the light. Maybe my religion is crazy and extreme. You saw a fucking dinosaur. She just... Oh, really? Yeah, I did. Done. Man.
You really hate this, don't you? You really hate this religion.
I really hate their religion is so dumb. It's just... And yet Bo-Katan thinks it's so beautiful that she's ready to convert. I mean, I don't...
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope that she's just using them, and she's going to come out on top and be the leader and not settle for this bullshit. That's just my personal opinion, but...
God. I mean, granted, it's like... Maybe Andor spoiled me by showing me that, what good Star Wars can be. Because now, see, before I had this low bar for Star Wars, where I'm just like, well, it's Star Wars, don't think too hard. It's Star Wars, don't think too hard. There hasn't been good Star Wars since 1980. Don't worry about it. And then Andor happened, and I'm like, oh, fuck. I forgot what good stuff was. I forgot what drama and plot and characterization was in Star Wars. And then you come back to Mandalorian, and I'm just like, man, this is straight up trash. The fact that this last episode was one of the better episodes, and it was such trash. It's just nothing makes any sense. They're killing time, climbing rocks and killing dinosaurs. That does nothing. It does nothing, and their religion doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes any sense. I have no idea why anyone is doing anything.
Well, it's to unite the Mandalorian people, Preston, and, to foil Moff Gideon's plans, whatever they may be.
It's what? I'm assuming that they were divided because of the religion, but then they just throw the religion out the window. So, They're fucking stupid religion. They're fucking helmet religion.
Well,
man.
they're actually divided because Darth Maul did a coup, and then someone else did another coup. And then people don't like Darth Maul. And Bo-Katan's like, I don't like that Darth Maul is leader now, so she rebelled in Clone Wars, and then, like, everyone was divided. It was like,
Gotcha.
It's a whole thing.
Gotcha. I forgot that the real story with actual, like, writing where there was a plot came from a children's show. I forgot that the children's show actually established all of the character motivation and explanation for like everything in this universe.
There has to be a reason why this season is trash, because seasons 1 and 2, every episode stuff happened. Like, I'm putting it on COVID. Like, there's just no way. We've gotten 5 episodes, and I felt the only real episodes that moved anything along was like the 2nd and 5th, and everything else, and barely the 2nd. Well, no, the 2nd and the 5th. Everything else.
By the way, did I already make this joke? Did I think I got distracted, but so Big Guns, Jon Favreau, all of a sudden he has a son, even though he didn't have a son in the previous seasons. We don't know where his son's been. Maybe he was in the sub basement. Like, you know how Mando went into the basement and there was like another basement underneath it or something?
Of course.
He had a son. He wore the helmet. He wore the helmet when he conceived him. Yeah.
Are you asking me if Jon Favreau's Big Guns character, Paz Vizsla, I believe, had sex with the helmet on? He took off all his clothes, all his armor, and had sex. I would assume
he's
so.
like completely naked. It's completely naked. Only the helmet. And was it on another? Did he father on another Mandalorian? It doesn't matter. Like,
I have no idea. These are questions we should ask George Lucas. And
see, like, Mando is allowed to be friends with people that aren't Mandalorians. He's like not that proselytizing. Like, he's not that intolerant of others. He like has his own creed, but he doesn't care about other people's creed. It's not like the same thing. Like, Big Guns is like, and man, he must have a really good personality. You know.
A good chunk of the religion is about personal honor, as we found out in this episode. A lot of it is so basically every like warrior religion species from like Star Trek ever, like the Klingons, or if people are familiar with Dragon Age, the Kunari, like it's just they're just Klingons again, kinda, but with a helmet.
Yeah, but with a helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's the thing is like I wish so. Even if we're establishing that the fundamental tenet of the religion is, and you know, the beginning and the end of everything, it's alpha and omega, is you can't take off the fucking helmet unless you're Bo-Katan and you want to unite the fucking people.
That there's an asterisk on that, yes.
And they're asterisk, right? Why do they fight?
What do you mean?
Like, why are they training all the fucking time? Like, how did their Inspector Gadget like lifestyle also come about? Like their Predator Inspector Gadget lifestyle, like how does that relate to the helmet?
I don't really know. I'm assuming because the Mandalorians in Star Wars lore has always kind of been like the Spartans from ancient Greece. So they train because it's the way of life. That's how they stay alive, by training and doing odd jobs around the galaxy, bounty hunting, all that stuff, to continue the whole situation.
So it's not just that their entire lore is based off of Boba Fett, and the two things that we knew about Boba Fett is that we didn't know what he looked like, and he had a bunch of gadgets.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying
like there's no like. I'm just saying, like, take any other religion, okay? Christianity, Islam, Mormonism, Buddhism. Like, why would there be, like gadgets and the helmet thing? Like, okay, Jewish people that, you know, if you're fairly serious, you got to wear yarmulke. Okay, you got the yarmulke. How does that relate to, and they don't have like guns and are constantly training for battle? Like what's the connection? Like how, like why do they fight? And I know you're saying like, oh, they need to do odd jobs, but they seem to do odd jobs now because Mandalore is kaputs and they need to scrounge so they can buy their best guest car armor. They can but like why do they need that armor? Like can't they just wear like a plastic bucket on their head? Like what's the like why do they need this super fancy armor, and why do they need to be able to kill people with all these gadgets? Like how does it all...
Well, it's the tradition of their people. It's like with the Jews and the yarmulke. Like they can't just put like anything. They can't put a teacup on their head. It has to be specifically a yarmulke, right?
No. They believe that they just have to have a barrier between them and God. Conceivably, it could be anything. They just... I mean, it's true that tradition-wise, it's a yarmulke, but like in a dogmatic sense, it doesn't have to be a yarmulke. It could just be a paper towel. I imagine. Like it doesn't matter. It just has to be a barrier between you and God, right? It's like so it's so I mean, I'm just wondering, like dogmatically, like what's the reasoning for the fighting?
We also find out in the Clone Wars television show that Mandalore, for the most part, was just a normal society of normal people without helmets, like just everyday people that you'd find on Coruscant or whatever. It's just, you had these private sects, these cults on like Mandalore's moon who were hidden away and did not want to join the new ways and instead wanted to be part of the old ways. Bo-Katan was one of those cults, and Mando's cult here seems to be one of them as well. So they just like to stick to tradition. They do not want the new ways, which they find to be weak and pathetic. Which doesn't really matter anymore because the Empire's already blown up most of Mandalore already.
Right.
And have subjugated any of the remaining clans on there. So I'm assuming... I think it's the fact that they are in hiding. I think it was already explained a couple seasons back that they're just in hiding from anyone who might come looking for them for any specific reason. Mostly the Empire.
So I'm giving such a hard time, and we're going in circles here because there's just it's so incredibly dumb. But like, I'm giving a hard time this episode because like the fact that Bo-Katan seemingly falls in love with this religion and wants to be part of it. We need to understand what that dogma is. I need to understand what those beliefs are. Like it's so incredibly vacuous that I couldn't imagine any human being being like, oh yes, I want to be part of I want to be part of this club. This club that stands for literally nothing. Other than occasionally taking in orphans to train to be maniac fighters. I mean, I guess that's pretty common in the Star Wars universe. Sorry, but like,
it's pretty common in our world as well.
Yeah, I guess. But it's just, I just don't know. Yeah, it's just.
So it's safe to say you didn't like this episode.
It was fine. It's just. We're 3 fucking seasons in. And I guarantee you pull out those old podcasts that we did years ago about season 1. I seem to remember me saying, oh, there's some really fascinating stuff with this like religion. I'd love to know more about that religion. The religion seems really fascinating. I want more of that. And I've gotten a whole season hanging out with these people, and they suck. Like they suck. There's nothing to them. There's nothing interesting. There's nothing fascinating. It is the least interesting group of people I've ever come across. Like, how in Star Trek you go to a different world and you find out about a culture and you're like, oh, that's a really interesting culture, and they do this certain way, and you learn some sort of like moral lesson or you look in the mirror at yourself, you know, like, oh, on that planet, like, you know, there's only one sex and one gender, and everybody's forced to be that one, you know, sex and gender. But what happens when Riker falls in love with one? You know, like, you know, at least we understand something about them. I understand nothing. I understand nothing about these people. They're dumb. All they want to do is keep their fucking helmet on and fuck with their helmets on and fight. Like, they fight with their helmets on, and that's all they care about. And like, I have learned nothing. And they seem to care about some dinosaur.
Yeah, sounds about right. But no, to wrap this up a little bit, to wrap this up a little bit, episode 4, garbage. Episode 5, slightly better, but
better.
It just moves the plot along. I really think COVID really impacted this show in some shape or form, because just nothing's really happening. It's like
you're gonna blame it on COVID and not just fucking Jon Favreau, like writing the story on the back of an envelope or something on a Post-it note. After talking to,
is that confirmed?
After talking to a 12-year-old. No, look, what he's fucking doing is he's going down to the fucking like the dirt bike jump, and he's like, "Hey guys," and the kids are like riding around on their dirt bikes, and he's like, "What should happen in the next episode of Mandalorian?" And the kid's like, there should be like a big dinosaur bird that like kidnaps like a kid's son, and they have to like rescue him. And he's like, okay, yeah, that's good. That's good. A dinosaur bird. And then they
you think Jon Favreau's taking writing story cues from children?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. And he's like, okay, now we yeah, okay. Well, I'll have to invent some more Mandalorians, because we didn't have them before, but you know, if I'm gonna make this dinosaur bird story work, it's gonna have to happen. Okay, what else? It's like there's like space pirates who are like taking over a planet, and then the Mandalorians got to go pew 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 and like defeat the space pirates. They're like, okay, cool, all right, thanks guys, and then they go back to their jumps. That's exactly it. It's hard to believe that a full-grown man, Jon Favreau, is writing these stories.
You're out for blood today. God damn, what happened? Are you that upset that House of the Dragon only has 8 episodes? I mean, I'm upset too, but fuck.
I know. Just want something. Just want something. I mean, you could have done. They could have picked anything. Like, had they mentioned some like mystical god or deity or something, I would have. Or just just saying something cryptic. But instead, it's just
20 minutes later.
I feel like you can totally just get anyone to do anything with This Is the Way.
What do you mean?
Well, so in Japanese, there's this like particle that you put at the end of sentences, which is like ne, which kind of means like let's do something. And I've heard people joke that like Japanese people, like they're able to organize really well because they just kind of go ne on the end of their sentences, and then everybody's like, okay, let's do it. I feel like that's the same way with like This Is the Way. Like if I'm like, hey Carmine, you let's go knock off a liquor store. You'd be like, you want to knock off a liquor store? And I'd be like, This Is the Way. And you'd be like, This Is the Way. And then you have to do it. Like that's it. Like it doesn't matter what the fuck it is. You just go, This Is the Way. And then they're just like obligated to do it. Like that's it. Like they actually have no creed. Like everybody's really confused. Like no one knows what the creed is. So all someone has to do is just say, This Is the Way. And it's like, oh, fuck, is that the way? I guess I guess I have to do it. Right?
So what you're saying is nobody in the cult knows anything except the person at the top, and the way the way they control the others is by saying this is the way, and everybody just assumes it's the way.
Think about big guns. Think about big guns and like convincing everybody to go save Carl Weathers, right? He's like, why should we do this? Because we're Mandalorians. And then it kind of all ends with this is the way, and then they're just doing it. There's no explanation. I mean, granted, they get some plots of land, but even though they had plots of land, they lived on a whole fucking planet by themselves. It just had dinosaurs. They like dinosaurs, but they don't like dinosaurs at the same time, So it's a problem.
So episode 6 is essentially Mando CSI, where they go to Jack Black and Lizzo's planet. I forgot the name of the planet. And they're doing like a little side mission to get to the main mission. And at this point, this late in the season, I think we should cut back on the side missions and just get to the meat and potatoes of like the main quest.
So when the episodes kind of began and they started going into it, I was like, this episode doesn't fit with the arc of the season. It was a really fun standalone. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was really fun. Like, there was just so many different creatures and so many different droids and so many different performances from different actors like Christopher Lloyd and Jack Black, who, by the way, the minute I saw him, I was like, oh no, is he going to be Jack Black? And he was actually pretty reserved. And I was like, okay. I was like, thank goodness. Thank goodness he was actually like pretty chill. I forget that Jack Black actually started out as a child actor. So he does actually like act, So, but so it was really fun. But yeah, like you are kind of like in the arc thing. Like, why are they on this like weird CSI droid mission that's interesting and all, like, but doesn't seem too related to the Mandalorian plot. But the Mandalorian plot does suck right now, so maybe I was just like so happy that they were doing something different that was kind of interesting, that and a lot of it even made sense. Like, I was like, oh, these are all like sorts of little when they were describing like the droids and the programming and what was going on and the politics of the planet and Count Dooku and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, this is all kind of like interesting, But and then they get back to the Mandalorians, and I'm like, oh my god, this sucks.
I actually kind of have the opposite opinion. For me, the beginning and the end like were really cool, but that's because I watched Clone Wars. I've been here with the Mandalorian storyline for almost over 10 years, and it was just a little bit of a letdown. Like, they were kind of hurrying the episode along when he just gives her the Darksaber.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's just, how are Mandalorians the dumbest, like, most basic human beings on the planet? Where, like, one faction has no beliefs other than the fact that you can't take off your helmet, and the other faction has no fucking beliefs except for you can only be led by someone who has the Darksaber, and it must be won in battle. You have two factions of complete morons who stand for nothing other than the most incidental, like, crazy, insane rule. Like, what human beings, like, why is there not a single, like, reasonable human being in the entire Mandalorian, like, culture that's just
By the way,
again, like, we're not given any reason for this. Like, well, why is it so important that your leader carry the Darksaber? Why must you win it in battle? Like,
well, it is somewhat explained in the Clone Wars animated series. Essentially, Mandalore had a...
Oh, really? Really? Maybe there's a book I can go to my local library and check out about that. Well, no, you just fucking have it in the episode. You can't, like...
I agree. I think Red Letter Media said it best. I think it went during their Star Wars prequel reviews. If you have to go to like a book or another show to like get the answer of something in that movie specifically, then you've kind of failed at storytelling. But essentially, the Mandalorians for eons have always been a warrior people, and most recently, in like the last 100 years, they've not evolved, but they've moved away from that to being a more peaceful people. However, some tribes have split off, and they want to war and do all the warrior culture still. So these are the tribes, like the Mando's tribe and Bo-Katan's tribe, which I think is kind of a little different. And yeah, so the peaceful Mandalorians. I don't think
really Bo-Katan's really well manicured tribe of models. That's what I've like. You know what I'm saying? Like every single person in her crew is like you know, a 9 out of 10, right? like right? Like,
I mean, you don't know. Like all Mandalorians could be really good looking. You don't know.
Well, don't we already know that one's Jon Favreau? I mean, that's why they have the helmet. We keep the helmet on because we're just too handsome. We're just too good looking. It's just ridiculous.
By the way, there was some controversy with this episode that everyone had a problem with. There was one guy specifically that made me laugh every time. Like, he was ridiculous, but his tweet was like, Lizzo and Jack Black in Star Wars? George Lucas is rolling in his grave. And I'm like, George Lucas died? When did George Lucas pass away? And just...
Also, like, George Lucas would absolutely not care. like those two things? Like, no? Like,
And of course, people were liking it to Ed Sheeran in Game of Thrones Season 7, which I don't think was that bad. Like, Lizzo is a very meh actress. Jack Black kind of carried it. But I do agree that if we're going to have celebrity cameos, I would rather them be like weird looking aliens. Like, remember in the pilot of Mando, you told me the fish guy was like an SNL actor?
I think we did look that up. The one that was in blue, and then we couldn't recognize him. I mean, I'm forgetting, but it was something like that. I had to look him up, and he was some yeah.
There are levels to celebrity cameos, like Amy Sedaris's Polly. Like, to me, she's like, I don't really know her that well, so it's a whatever. But then you have like Jack Black, who I grew up with Jack Black, School of Rock and all that, and you know, Pick of Destiny, and like he's very like, I just wish they put like some alien stuff on him to make it to where you're like, is that Jack Black? And tone him down a bit, which they did do here fairly well.
Well, it's I'm now comparing it to like Star Wars. I mean the original movie and like Empire Strikes Back, and I suppose to Americans, the British actors that appeared like were not necessarily as famous, but you did have like, you know, Alec Guinness, like, you know, in the movie, and then when they I'm certain that during Empire Strikes Back, when they cast Billy Dee Williams, who had previously been in a lot of blaxploitation films and things like this, like he was already kind of a famous guy, a famous sex symbol at the time when they put him in that movie, and I'm sure, you know, it caused a bunch of uproar because anytime you cast a black person, somebody seems to get angry, you know. So it's not that Star Wars doesn't cast well-known actors in roles and then get shit over it. So this is just like what it does. I mean, I think none of the actors took away from anything, you know. Even with Ed Sheeran, the camera stayed on him a little too long. Even though Ed Sheeran did a fine job, like had he been a nobody, everyone would have just been like, "Huh, what a random scene." It's just that they left the camera on him too long, right?
I think so, just a tad.
Yeah, so I mean, Jack Black, like, yeah, when I saw that it was Jack Black, I was like, "Oh no!" But then he actually played the role fine, and Lizzo was whatever. She didn't do a horrible job. you know. So
Did you know that there were more cameos in Game of Thrones that they were so quick you'd blink and you miss it?
yeah, I'm sure
there was
like on those battles and such.
Well, remember when Theon is rescuing Yara from or slash Asha from the Euron ship? When Theon hits his hammer, his axe down on someone's head, the guy who he kills immediately, you'll have to pause it, but that's Mac from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The man's name is Rob McElhenney or something like that. So I'm okay with those types of cameos where they die instantly. There's a deleted scene where the James Bond actor, the most recent one, the British man, I forgot his name, Daniel Craig, he played a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
He was just under the storm. Like, that I'm fine with. That is fine. But when the cameo is like, it's like an actor like very prominent, and even and you said Alec Guinness. I didn't know Alec Guinness was in Lawrence of Arabia, which at the time was like a huge movie in the United States, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Best Picture, and Bridge over the River Kwai as well was his other big one. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. I think cameos suck. I hate cameos. I hate all cameos. I hate when SNL has cameos. I hate comedy movies that rely on cameos. I don't think there's any point to them. Like, unless it's done explicitly for humor and it's really, really surprising, like in a movie like Deadpool where Brad Pitt like makes a cameo for like a 1 second, unless it's something like that where you're already in this like ridiculous meta movie, I'm going to put Brad Pitt in the cameo. But other than that, like, I don't see what the point of a cameo is. Like, I don't understand. Like, there's a bazillion incredible, capable actors out there. And so, when I say that, like, Lizzo and Jack Black did fine, that was, like, the best fucking case scenario. Like, okay, the best case scenarios is whatever, fine, they didn't ruin things. Cameos will never make it better, is what I'm saying. Like, had they cast strangers that you had never seen, unknown actors, I would have liked the episode just as much, if not more.
So you didn't like Christopher Lloyd, because he was a bit random. I don't know if I would argue Lizzo and Jack Black are more recognizable than him, but he felt very random.
I mean, Christopher Lloyd is an incredible actor. He is. An unknown would have done just as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, because there's so many incredible unknowns, right? There's so many incredible actors in the field that you can just throw a rock and hit one, right? So, like, it's not that I don't like Christopher Lloyd. I do. It's not that he didn't do a great job. He did. The best case scenario was hit. However, it was pointless. Like, I you know, at no point was I like, I'm so happy I saw Christopher Lloyd. You know, like, it was, you know, it was just like they put him in and he didn't ruin it. Phew. Because cameos will often do. But it's just also like, why? Like, what was the point? Like just cast an unknown. I'm just as happy with an unknown. Like, what
you made a very,
I just don't get it.
You made a very good point when we did the Rise of Skywalker review. J.J. Abrams worked eons ago with that woman who was in Felicity.
Mm-hmm.
And she was one of the bounty hunter scoundrel like characters in Rise of Skywalker. And you said the reason JJ probably put her in there was because he was trying to throw her a bone, trying to get her some, like, you know, royalties on merchandise or whatever to use her likeness or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm sure.
He did it as like a favor absolutely. For her because they're friends.
Yeah, he threw in a bunch of his old. I mean, there's certain communities of actors that do this. They just help each other out, like the SCTV crew or the J.J. Abrams crew or the Kids in the Hall or whatever. Like, one of them's in a movie and it's like, hey, could you just hire my buddy? And then they'll scratch their back later on, right?
I wonder if that's why he killed off Wesley, because I think Wesley was in I forgot the man's name, but like I know they're friends in real life, and he's the chubby pilot that was in Force Awakens and then comes back in Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. I think they were in something together, or he directed him in something. I wonder if the reason he killed him off is because he's like, JJ, just please kill my character off. I don't want to fucking come back for any of this crap.
He was an alias, yeah.
Well, I think he was, yeah. Just kill my guy. I don't want to come back for any of this crap. I don't want to come back for like movies or whatever. Just kill me off.
Just kill me off. Just kill me off. Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, maybe I don't know. I think other people do really enjoy cameos, I guess, but you know, it's just like I guess what it does is it reminds me of stuff like Zoolander 2, where I'm just like some horrible movie like Zoolander 2, where it's just like all you have is a bunch of cameos.
Wait, Zoolander 2 sucked? I was gonna watch it actually. I love the original Zoolander.
Oh God, no! Don't watch Zoolander 2. No. What do you want to ruin all good memories of the first movie? No, don't waste your time. Please do not waste your time. Don't waste your time on Anchorman 2. Don't waste your time.
Anchorman 2 was bad?
Oh yeah, God. Oh my God. There's just these pointless cash grab sequels. Don't watch Dumb and Dumber 2. Don't watch Major League 2. Don't watch anything. None of these. Don't watch The Hangover 2.
Hangover 2 was bad?
Oh, God.
What? They made a third. I would assume like the success of the second warranted a third. No.
No. Hangover 3 is not as bad as Hangover 2, but Hangover 2 is atrocious. It's just no. It's just I just think it's lazy. I just think it's so lazy. It's just like, oh, I'm just gonna put in an actor, and people will go, and so the audience will go, oh look, it's that actor. Yeah, they're a fucking actor.
My whole thing is, if you're gonna put someone in Star Wars, at least make them like a giant grotesque alien or something, like where you can barely recognize them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Then I at least get to go, did you know that Kevin Spacey sat in a makeup chair for 18 hours to be that fish? You know, at least there's that. You know, that kind of thing. I don't know why I picked Kevin Spacey. He was the first name that came to my head.
But what did you think of the episode? It was very like whatever. A good chunk of it was.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun and forgettable. It was fluffy. I liked it better than the last episodes because to be honest. But that's just because I thought the droid bar was really interesting and all those floating aliens were interesting and you know and that was it. But yeah, then once they got back to the Mandalorian plot of it's just I can't believe they fought with their helmets off. That was really dangerous.
You're the only person thinking of this. By the way, their fleet has grown since we last saw it in season 2. And I like I said, I think Mandalorian season 3 was a victim of COVID filming, and maybe some studio meddling. There were some rumors, and I didn't really want to like put anything on them because they come from the usual suspects, always saying that Kathleen Kennedy's going to be fired tomorrow, and she never is. They've been saying that for years. I do think there was maybe some weird stuff going on behind the scenes because this season feels so far very disjointed. We only have 2 episodes left, and they have like I don't know how they're going to somehow turn the entire season around because so far it's been very mediocre. I would argue not as boring as Rings of Power, but it's been very like kind of pointless.
I mean, they're shorter episodes than Rings of Power, so it's not really a fair comparison.
True.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Rings of Power, you have to, like, each episode was like an hour and 10 minutes, and you're like, oh my God, when is this thing going to end?
Yeah.
But, yeah. There's more crazy aliens as well in this. At least there's, you get to look at crazy. At least when you're bored, you can look at crazy aliens.
Someone made a joke that, like, all the budget for the aliens went to this episode instead of in Andor. Because in Andor, we had almost no aliens. Maybe 1 or 2.
No aliens,
yeah.
Right?
So all the budget for all the alien designs went to this episode. And I will say, I really liked the very beginning because I thought that was really cool. The Quarians and the Mon Cala alien guy and like that was a really cool sequence. I like that. She's like the Quarren alien, she's in like her like water tank and all that, and like I thought that was super neat. More stuff like that.
I thought all those things really I thought a lot of the designs in this episode were really cool. I guess I liked seeing the battle droids and what happened to them and how I mean I guess I was fascinated by also they tried to repair why droids like want to work. They're like, oh, like droids believe that because humans created them, they owe something to humans, and therefore they want to work. It's an interesting idea. The fact that now I seem to know more about how random droids think than Mandalorians is like I understand their belief system a lot better.
The bartender droid also made it seem like the manual labor they do isn't much. Like it's whatever. Like we can do it. I mean,
yeah, that they're like, it's not that bad. Like that's I mean, that's pretty creative. I mean, and granted, I checked the writer at the end, and this was Jon Favreau by himself, and so I was like, okay, that Jon Favreau, that's pretty creative, because like all of like people, the whole Star Wars is filled with slavery angle has been thrown around constantly, right? You know, droids are slaves. How do we like it? But then it's like, what if actually, like, to a droid, yeah, this is hardly any work. Like yeah, I'm enslaved to do like nothing. like this is, I mean, like imagine if like you and I were slaves, but the only thing we were asked to do was like, I don't know, 15 minutes of like dusting, and then the rest of my day was free. And you'd be like, oh, but you're a slave. But like, sure, but
it doesn't feel like
it's a pretty easy job, right? It doesn't feel right. So it was a very creative idea that the droids are like, the work isn't that bad, like, and then, you know, and they created us, so it's like a fair trade. And it's like, oh wow, I mean, it's true. Like in a slavery situation, like it's not like you were created. You know, the slave wasn't created by the master, unless you're like going through that horrible master rape thing. But that's a whole nother.
It's a whole nother video.
Bag of worms. Yeah, exactly. So I would say, like, you know, normally I'm like really bash Jon Favreau for having the mind of a 14-year-old in his writing, but I do have to say, and why I like this episode the most of all of the episodes of the season is that there were these creative ideas in there, especially with the droid bar and the droid philosophy, and stuff like that, and even getting into Christopher Lloyd's like motivation and him being like this old guy whose life goes all the way back to like the Separatists and Count Dooku. You know, I thought those were clever. So I you know, I thought a lot of the designs and aliens were really neat. So I say kudos to Jon Favreau on this one. He did a much better job than most of his other episodes. Though the Mandalorian, like we're 3 seasons in, and I don't know anything logical about Mandalorians. They're just the biggest idiots.
Like I said, so far this season has been very disjointed. This was a very fun episode. It was CSI Mando. And what they really should have done, I've said this last time, I'll say it here, every season should have been a different Mandalorian focus. You could have Grogu and Din Djarin in the background, sure. But
Yeah.
I don't get the point anymore. Like I thought Grogu was going to have a bigger plot this season going forward, because we had that flashback with him, but then since that flashback, we've gotten really nothing. He's just there. He's just there. It's just a trump card that they can pull out.
Well, you know, he is just a puppet. Like, he's just a little Muppet. You can't really do anything. He doesn't speak. You can't do anything with him. I almost think that I was wondering when watching this episode, what if this were the show? You know,
what, them just going around doing side quests? It's kind of been the show.
But I'm talking, yeah. I mean, but not just Mando and Bo-Katan. Because now he has someone to talk to. The problem with the regular Mandalorian like missions is that Mando is a man of few words, and the person he's with doesn't talk. Okay, so like you've got this very difficult situation. It's not like Grogu can ask Mando some questions about his life and he can explain stuff. You know, instead it's like Mando has to arrive on a planet and hope that fucking Carl Weathers is there. You know, and Carl Weathers never seems to ask him anything.
You know, it's at the end of the day, it really is a cost-cutting measure because when I look here, I'm on the wiki. So Pedro Pascal is Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder as the on-set doubles for the Mandalorian. So Pedro Pascal, 99% of the time, is not in the suit. They can pay these random stunt doubles, whatever the fuck. And Katie Sackhoff, as much as I love her, she's amazing. She's not the draw that Pedro Pascal is. So throughout the entire season 3, he's had maybe 5 minutes worth of dialogue, maybe.
You're saying they called him on the phone.
Pretty
and he
much.
Recorded it through his phone.
Pretty much. So
they're like, okay, we've got this list of words for you to say. Say them. He's like, okay.
And throughout the entirety of Mando season 1 and 2, he doesn't you're right. You're right. He does not say a lot. He has to pray to God. There's a guy down there that he might know that he could say a couple sentences to. But for the most part, it's been very cost cutting, saving money in a way, just to have him kind of be a part of this season, kind of not really. If you compile all his dialogue, it's really not that much for this season, which makes me think
no, you're right.
I do wonder what the fuck is going on. The last 2 episodes better be bangers because it's starting to feel like this season was a complete waste of time. I'll go as far as to saying everything we got in season 3, you could probably have ejected somewhere in Book of Boba Fett. It would have been a bit more entertaining.
I mean, you are right that if this were a regular story with where Pedro Pascal was on set every time, they would have a lot more scenes of him in his quarters by himself where he takes off his helmet and he looks around and he does stuff, you know, and then you get to see his face and then he puts his helmet on and then he goes out. But there's none of that. It's always I'm even thinking of season 1 where he goes to that American Indian village with the AT-AT, you know what I'm talking about?
Sanctuary.
And yeah, he takes off his helmet in that, and they don't show his head. They don't show his face, and you're like, oh, so Pedro Pascal wasn't even there. Yeah, so he gets to work one day.
Honestly, it's the greatest gig ever. Just you go into a recording studio. Maybe you have one set up at your house, and then you record a couple of lines, a day's worth of work, maybe 2, and there it is.
It's like James Earl Jones and Darth Vader,
yeah,
right?
There it is. But overall, this episode was okay. I had fun. It was fine. It's just I don't see it going anywhere major, but I could be surprised in the last 2 episodes. And
yeah. I mean, the ending was horrible. The ending was absolutely horrible. I mean, I will say this is the best episode of the season, unless maybe the one without Mando is also pretty good. The one where the guy just goes into prison at the end, or no? Does he get killed or does he go to prison? He gets mind wiped. That's right. That might be, that might be the best. It's not a high bar to be the best this season, but that ending was just horrible. That was just horrible. Because could you imagine if it was that easy to trick a bunch of weird hardline zealots, and I'm saying that they're zealots too because they have this ridiculous belief that I'm only going to be led by someone who has the Darksaber who won it in battle, which is just the dumbest criterion for leadership. But the fact that he's goes in there and it's just yes, but what if she saved me and then that means she defeated the person that defeated me. And you're they just take his word for it, which is dumb. But
I know.
But also no one else came up with that. Yeah, okay. It's I'm just going in circles talking about how stupid the Mandalorians are. They're the worst. They're the absolute worst.
That being said, Preston, do you mind if we wrap it up here?
Sounds good.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we'll see you all next time. Have a good one.